Looks like help is on the way for the Dallas Mavericks as they get ready to take on the Utah Jazz for a pair of games before returning home to take on the Phoenix Suns. This is the Gray Area, Kevin Gray of 105.3 The Fan. Appreciate everyone subscribing to my YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, also at Kevin Gray Sports. The Mavs are back at practice today as they get ready to take on the Utah Jazz in a couple of basketball games, taking on one of the hottest teams in all of the NBA currently. The Utah Jazz have won 8 games in a row, sparked by Donovan Mitchell and Mike Conley, forming one of the better backcourts in all of the NBA currently right now as it stands. The Dallas Mavericks, of course, have lost their last 2 games in a row as they try to get things figured out. But it looks like help is on the way in the form of Dorian Finney-Smith, also and Josh Richardson coming back for this basketball team with respect to how they are looking going forward. This is a team that needs the services of guys like Josh Richardson and Dorian Finney-Smith and Dwight Powell. Those three look like they are on their way back for the Dallas Mavericks. Maxi Kleber's still out right now due to the health and safety protocols of the NBA. And for a team in the Dallas Mavericks that's both 17th in defensive and offensive rating, the help couldn't come at a better time. You've seen over the last couple of games where they've struggled against the Houston Rockets and also in the Denver Nuggets on both the defensive end in both of those games. They gave up 70 points in the first half to the Denver Nuggets while playing better in the third quarter. In the second half defensively, it was too little too late as Michael Porter Jr., of course, scored 30 points in that basketball game. You go back to the Houston Rocket game, they allowed DeMarcus Cousins to get off for 28 points, 17 rebounds, and 5 assists in that particular game, in a game where they were missing guys like Victor Oladipo, Christian Wood, and Daniel House. The Dallas Mavericks still were not able to find themselves winning a crucial game at home. But now, as they get ready to go on the road to take on one of the best teams in the Western Conference, they are going to be needing the defensive help from Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, especially in the starting lineup. When the Mavs game notes came out, the projected starting lineup looked something like this: Josh Richardson, Dorian Finney-Smith, obviously with Kristaps Porzingis, Tim Hardaway Jr., and of course, MVP candidate Luka Doncic. That looks a lot more like the lineup that we thought we were going to see for the Mavs going throughout this season. But obviously they have been one of the hardest teams hit in terms of COVID-19 and what they've been able to deal with that. But now it seems like they are getting the help back that they need. And they're going to need that help, especially going against a tough basketball team in the Utah Jazz for 2 straight games to coming back home to take on the Phoenix Suns. This team is just trying to get to February at this point. Once they get to about mid-February, they're going to have a stretch where they're playing 9 of 10 games at home, including a 7-game stretch where they play 7 games in a row at home. This team needs to get some positive momentum going on its side. Basically, now they're going to get some help back with guys like Dorian Finney-Smith and also Josh Richardson and Dwight Powell. It's going to be important for this team to develop the continuity that they were starting to develop prior to these individuals going out. The last time that we saw these individuals on the court, which they've missed 9 games now, which was back when they took on the Denver Nuggets in that overtime win when Maxi Kleber was able to hit a 3-pointer to help to get the game into overtime. So Dorian Finney-Smith, Josh Richardson, Dwight Powell missing 9 games each over the last few weeks now find themselves getting back into the swing of things. Here is Dorian Finney-Smith talking about the idea of getting back with this team, how he's feeling, and what he's looking to contribute for what this Mavs team is needing to do. Here is Dorian Finney-Smith talking after practice today.
How do you feel, and how excited are you to potentially play again?
I'm excited, man. I miss the guys. Coach said it was gonna be a weird year, but I never thought it was gonna be me stuck in the city. I ain't think it was gonna be me. So, but we here. So.
Well, thank you. Can you talk about lessons learned during these past couple of weeks? Any lessons learned?
I would say that probably the most healthiest team probably gonna have the best advantage in the NBA right now. So I really don't know, what lessons I can learn from getting it, because, I really don't. I was trying to be safe knowing, my situation back home. So I really wasn't, out and about. It was just one of those freak acts, I guess. I don't know what to call it. But, like coaching them said, this year, whatever team had the most guys available is going to put their, best foot forward. And that's how it's been looking lately.
So you can tell Dorian Finney-Smith is extremely excited to get back on the floor, dealing with COVID, and now getting back onto the floor for the Dallas Mavericks. And the expectations for these players is going to be very simple. Get into game shape as quickly as possible. There's nothing like NBA game shape. You can't simulate it in practice. You can't simulate it in 3-on-3s or 5-on-5s in practice. The only way to get into game shape is to play in real NBA games. So temper the expectations for just a little bit while this team figures out how they continue to get back these guys acclimated into the starting lineup. It'll be interesting to see if they are on any kind of minutes restriction, especially for a guy in Dorian Finney-Smith, also for Josh Richardson, as they work their way back into this lineup and see how they can contribute to this team going forward. But these expectations are things that the Dallas Mavericks are understanding how to manage, but also more so than anything, the health and safety of these players is the most important, obviously, with what they're dealing with in terms of COVID. And that's been the biggest thing that's really hampered this Mavericks team this season, is the inability to stay healthy. At 8-9 on the season through 17 games, we have not seen the full complement and lineup of this team consistently throughout the year. Once we do see these players start to return and gain some consistency with respect to this lineup, things should begin to even out. And once you get into February, where that schedule will start to turn a little bit into their favor, this is a team in the Dallas Mavericks who's played 11 road games already this season. Now getting an opportunity, yes, going back on the road against a tough Utah team where they'll see guys like Rudy Gobert, Donovan Mitchell, and Mike Conley on this team. But more so than anything, the opportunity to develop some confidence and some continuity for the starting lineup for this team, especially defensively. At one point, this Dallas Mavericks team was second in defensive rating. Since then, they have slipped back rather far as defensive rating is concerned. And a lot of that has to do with lack of stretches, or plenty of stretches where there's been a lack of focus in terms of their defensive intensity, and continuing to keep that up. James Johnson talking about that after the game against the Denver Nuggets. The focus and the accountability and the attention to detail on the defensive end is something that's been lacking for this team over the last several games, to where they've fallen back to 17th in defensive rating. But once they get Josh Richardson back and Dorian Finney-Smith, who's one of their best perimeter defenders, their ability to guard wings, to be able to guard 3-and-D guys and really put pressure on perimeter players is going to be extremely important. And obviously, guys like Willie Cauley-Stein have to improve in terms of what he gives them in terms from an energy and a defensive standpoint, who's already won a Defensive Player of the Game award, who at times earlier in the season was playing well defensively, where Rick Carlisle has talked about the idea that him and Kristaps Porzingis formed their best defensive lineup when those two were on the floor together. Willie Cauley-Stein's got to get back to some of that, what you saw earlier in the season in terms of his defensive play and helping protect the paint alongside Kristaps Porzingis, who's normally going to give you a couple of blocks per game. Luka Doncic continues to be absolutely spectacular, having a 15-assist game in terms of that triple-double that he had against the Denver Nuggets, although it was not enough. Luka Doncic continues to put himself in the conversation, obviously, as an MVP frontrunner, along with guys like LeBron James, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic, and others. But this is an important stretch for the Dallas Mavericks to not only gain the confidence as they get ready to have this home stretch of games when February turns, but more so than anything, they've got to find themselves getting a win in one of these two games in Utah to give them the confidence that this is a team that can, again, get back to where they were earlier this season, playing the kind of defense where even guys like Luka Doncic was taking on the onus of the importance of playing well on the defensive end, who at one point had a 5-steal game, had a 4-block game. Luka Doncic was taking the onus on himself to be the defensive leader for this team, to be able to set the tone night in and night out on a defensive standpoint. Lately, he's had to shoulder the scoring load because of how they have been dealing with in terms of the health and safety protocols, the inconsistency of Tim Hardaway Jr. and what that has meant for that lineup. This team is going to need a much more consistent Tim Hardaway Jr., especially over these next several games. And hopefully he should be able to start to experience that, especially once they get back home for that stretch. But at the same time, going to Utah to take on a team that's one of the deepest teams in the NBA, with 3 legitimate players that can find themselves scoring at will, 2 of those really in Mike Conley, and mostly, of course, Donovan Mitchell. Rudy Gobert is a defensive stalwart in the middle. The Mavericks will have their hands full, where they've always had a tough time against the Utah Jazz. Much like how the Denver Nuggets presented multiple scorers and defenders, Utah is going to be doing a lot of the same, especially with Rudy Gobert in the middle there. This team will need Dorian Finney-Smith and Josh Richardson to help defend guys like Mike Conley and Donovan Mitchell. So this could not come at a better time as far as the return of these two individuals. As the Dallas Mavericks get ready to return to the American Airlines Center this weekend, they will face 2 games on the road in Utah to take on the hottest team, one of the hottest teams in all of the NBA besides the Los Angeles Clippers. The Utah Jazz have won 8 straight basketball games. But look, help is on the way, which is important for a team that needs all the help that it can get. And hopefully for Maxi Kleber, hopefully he is on his way back soon as he continues his road to recovery from COVID-19. But for now, the Dallas Mavericks are on their way to Utah for a couple of games on Wednesday and Friday, and then they return home to take on the Phoenix Suns. You can follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Kevin Gray Sports. Be sure to subscribe to the Kevin Gray Sports on YouTube. And again, make sure you hit the like, comment, and subscribe button right here for our YouTube channel at Kevin Gray Sports. We'll talk to you later.